You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the latest episode of Star Trek Prodigy, Mindwalk. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hey, Father Cory.
How's it going?
And Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Oh, hey, Dom. I just got back from a mind walk and I'm kind of tired.
My brain is tired. Folks, be sure to share the podcast with your friends to help us grow this great community of Star Trek fans and to reach even more listeners. I want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy called The Secrets of Middle-earth. You can find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Middle-earth. So, Jimmy, can you give us a recap of what happens in Mindwalk?
Last time, under the influence of a background program, Hollow Janeway betrayed the crew, took the protostar to biological Janeway's ship, and locked the kids out of the control. This time, it's Freaky Friday on Star Trek Prodigy. In an attempt to find a safe way to communicate with the Dauntless, Zero and Dal make a telepathic link with Bio Janeway, who the Diviner and Essentia have put in a closet. But this causes Dal and Bio Janeway to swap bodies. On board the protostar, biological Janeway learns the truth about the ship and why the kids can't answer hails without unleashing the Solemnite computer virus on the Federation. She also uses her Admiral-level authorization codes to fix Hollow Janeway and return her memories of the Chakotay mission. And Rock and Zero discover that the reason the body swap happened was because the two ships were physically linked by a phaser beam. On board the Dauntless, Dal tries to impersonate the Admiral with mixed success. Eventually, he's captured and taken to sickbay, but since Janeway saved the Diviner's life, he repays her by letting Dal go, thinking he's the Admiral. Ensign Essentia, back in her Trill form, announces that the protostar is heading for the heart of Federation space, and she sneakily suggests calling for backup so that the Dauntless won't have to face the protostar alone. Everything comes to a head when Dal sneaks off the Dauntless, and with the help of a handheld phaser beam, he and biological Janeway make contact during a spacewalk at warp speed. They then return to their own bodies, but the protostar has reached the heart of the Federation and drops out of warp, where it's surrounded by loads of ships that Ensign Essentia summoned. And biological Janeway discovers that Ensign Essentia has her locked in the Dauntless's brig. The end.
Yeah, so, although I don't think it's, well, we'll get to that. I'm not sure it's Essentia so much as the rest of the crew, but
yeah.
we can get there.
I kind of chuckled when you said mixed results of impersonating Janeway. No, I'll disagree. It was all bad.
Oh, bad.
It worked for a while. That's why I said mixed.
Yes. So,
and he would say stupid things and then find ways of rescuing them.
Yeah. Right, but yeah, everyone was pretty clearly like, "What's wrong with the Admiral?"
Well, the obvious one was when she spit out the coffee. I mean, for Janeway to spit out coffee is bad. I mean, that right there, they knew there was something really wrong.
How does she drink this bitter stuff? I think is what he said.
So this is kind of, it's part of a genre of stories where you have these two characters do body swaps. And in television and movies, those can be fun especially television, because you've seen the actors playing their usual part first. And often for a long time, like in the very last episode of the original series, Turnabout Intruder, involved a body swap between Captain Kirk and a guest character named Dr. Janice Lester. And in that, we saw Dr. Lester as Dr. Lester for, a good chunk of the episode before the body swap occurs. So we got a sense of what that character was like as played by that actress. And we'd been seeing, William Shatner play James Kirk for 3 years. And so then when they swap the bodies, the actors get to play each other, and it's always fun to see how they do that and how well they do that, copying each other's, not just each other's vocalisms, but their physicalisms, their mannerisms. And And so that's fun to see. And oftentimes, the actors will coach each other on, here's how I do this thing, or here's something I would do at this point. And they're able to deliver performances that are eerily reminiscent of the other actor. Mm-hmm. And this was interesting because it was animated. And so a lot of the performance was really something done presumably by the animators. They weren't presumably using motion capture on Kate Mulgrew and the actor who plays Dal. So they had to kind of, make up a good bit of that performance based on what they'd established with previous animation for how these characters move, and just transfer that from one, image to another. But the actors did get to imitate each other vocally. Mm-hmm. And a good bit of the work, I think, was, the actors did a good job, but I think a good bit of the work was also done really by the writing, by the script, because Dal and Admiral Janeway are very different people. They talk in very different ways. And so the writers used that to their advantage. And frankly, Dal got the best lines in this episode as Janeway. There's early on a point where he's walking down the corridor. He's figured out he's in Janeway's body, but he doesn't know anything else. And he runs into a crew member in the hallway who, greets him and is concerned for what's going on with the Admiral. And Dal is trying to improvise, and he just says, "Hello, Starfleet person. I am the Admiral, obviously. Thank you for your service."
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking like Kate Mulgrew channeling a teenage boy, as voice acts. All credit to Kate Mulgrew for doing that.
And she's had teenage boys. She's a mother, so yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the vocal mannerisms of both, because of course, then the actor who plays Dal, he had to play the very straight-laced Janeway, very sure of herself, and even as she's trying to figure things out, she's still got that confidence and everything. And so he's not stammering over his words like Dal does, but just like, yes, I'm Admiral Janeway, and we need to get this figured out. And,
But if you think about it,
both sides did a really good job. So
Kate Mulgrew had to do 3 different roles in this. She had to do Hollow Janeway, Bio Janeway, and then Dal in Bio Janeway. So she really had to push
her and Dal's Bio Janeway in Dal's body. Yeah.
The credits of this episode call that character Admiral Dal. Which I'm sorry, that may be a pun too far. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's pretty good.
That's what Rock calls her, right?
Oh, maybe. Yes, I think so. Yeah, I'd say that.
One thing I did like is when Hollow Janeway and Dal are talking, at one point they switch it so you see Vice Admiral Janeway.
Yeah.
You see Bio Janeway at that point for a little while they're talking, kind of to show, Hollow Janeway realizing, yes, this is her. This is the real Janeway, and kind of enforces that.
And that was nice because we got a scene where the two Janeways meet, where visually Hollow Janeway and Bio Janeway are on screen together.
I was a little iffy on some of that writing there because, Bio Janeway in Dal's body has to convince Hollow Janeway by telling Hollow Janeway something that only Janeway would know. And I'm thinking, if I'm Catherine Janeway, when they're making a hollow version of me, am I going to download all my most intimate memories into this thing? That's a very weird thing.
Well, from what we've seen, they do have extensive interviews. They made a point in the Deep Space Nine episode where Dr. Zimmerman was making a hologram based on Julian Brashear, and he said, we're going to have to do lots of interviews because the hologram is going to need, memories to draw on as part of its bedside manner in dealing with people. So apparently they would talk about childhood experiences and things like that.
And that wasn't something that was, really, really intimate. It was just, childhood memory. And
I suppose, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there was that. If you're going to make a realistic holo of anyone, you're going to need lots and lots and lots of data. I mean, sort of like the AI chatbots we're dealing with today. In order for them to be conversational, they need lots and lots and lots of data. And even now, like the ones we have today aren't perfect.
Yeah, that's something that wouldn't have been in her, official record. So it's something that wouldn't have been in the computer except within the hologram.
Okay.
But by the way, speaking of Dal spitting out the coffee, because coffee is one of those drinks that unless you're used to it, wow, is it not is it an acquired taste? It is not pleasant on first experience. It's like that and anything with alcohol in it. Just why do people drink this? You wonder the first time you have it.
Right.
And the doctor, Dr. Noose or whatever his name is. Noom. I keep remembering it as it's just a slight variation on the Greek word for mind, which is nous, nose. And he gets a great line too, because Dal is acting so weird in a command situation, and the tension is escalating on the bridge about what are they going to do. And the doctor comes up to Janeway to Dal with a mug and says, "As your doctor, I order you to drink this coffee. Get it together." and we know how significant that is, because Janeway herself has previously told her the doctor has previously ordered her to only drink tea, and now he's ordering her to drink coffee. That shows us how serious the situation is.
So at the end of last episode, we were talking about ways that they could communicate with the Dauntless, that don't require electronics and infecting them with the construct. And we talked about, signs on a window and Morse code. And those actually, at least the Morse code comes up in this episode. At the beginning, we see as the protostars drifting past the Dauntless, they see from this bridge, which is just a big canopy, Dr. Noom, I forget how it is, Noom, in a window, like, hold up a sign. Grab some paper. And
they don't end up holding up signs, but they do end up playing charades to communicate between the two ships, which is essentially the same sort of thing. I like how the reason they did that, because they suggested, why don't we talk to Dal? Because they need to get them back in their own bodies. And so they need to get them to do this spacewalk at warp speed. That's the goal they're trying to achieve. And they need to let Dal know what the plan is. And so they're between the windows on the ships, they're communicating, and Rock says, why don't we use Morse code? Like SOS. And Jankum points out, realistically, I think those were the only 3 letters in Morse code that Dal learned.
That's pretty much all of us. Yeah.
So they had to shift to charades, which is not holding up signs, but holding up your body as if it's a sign, miming different things.
Yeah. But again, you could hold up writing and read it writing. Yeah. You could look up Morse code on the computer in front of you and decipher it. So I know it's for the sake of the story they didn't do those things, but it's just kind of
wanted to have the goofy
the charades.
So
it's a kid show. So
they did a good job with the charades.
They did.
Another really good line that Dal has in this is at one point he's leaving the bridge. And he looks at the Andorian first officer and says, "You, antennas, you're in charge. Everyone, keep doing an awesome job. Teamwork makes the dream work."
Yeah.
Well, I think it was earlier where it's like, oh, whoa, stop firing, cease, quit it. And it's like, like back and forth. So you want to board their ship? I mean, let's see where they're going first. Then pew pew pew.
Yeah,
which is so out of character for Janeway.
Yeah,
Janeway did get a good line herself in this. At one point, after they've proposed the spacewalk to her to get them back in their bodies, they ask if you're okay with that. The kids do, and Janeway says, Listen, I was once transformed into a salamander.
Yes.
Nothing can be as difficult as that.
I'm so glad they brought that up.
Wow, they brought it up from what's widely regarded as the worst episode of Voyager ever, possibly of Star Trek ever. Where I think it's called Threshold, and they break the warp 10 barrier, and it turns Tom Paris and Captain Janeway into space salamanders who have mated and had children. It's like, whoa. I had assumed that this episode is what sometimes referred to in comics as a mopey. There was an episode there was an issue of the Flash where it was revealed that Barry Allen, although he got his speed powers in a lab accident when lightning struck a rack full of chemicals in a police lab, and they doused him, that was actually caused by a higher dimensional imp named Mopi, who is one of the 7 heavenly helpers. And so effectively it's like the Flash, this science-based hero, got his powers because of a higher dimensional heavenly helper imp. And it was regarded as so awful as a story that for at least a time, it has since been broken, but for at least a time, there was just a tacit agreement. We will never refer to this again. It has been ejected from canon. And I had always assumed that Threshold was that way, that we would never hear about that again because of how horrible it was. So for them to bring it up was quite interesting.
Well, they also mentioned it in Lower Decks with the Tom Paris episode. They also mentioned it there. So
Lower Decks is comedy, though.
Yeah, but it's still canon.
I would have guessed if it was going to be mentioned anywhere, it was going to be on Lower Decks, but not on Prodigy.
Not here, not on Prodigy.
But it's kind of funny that they bring it up, and I don't know, it feels kind of cool. It's sort of like, I don't know,
it's cool and horrifying at the same time.
Yeah, the original was horrifying. The fact that they can laugh at it now is cool. It's sort of like some of the Will Wheaton stuff that he laughs at nowadays too. Just at the time it was pretty bad, but now he can laugh about it, and we can laugh about it with him. So that's good. So talk a little bit about the Vindicator / Essentia and the Diviner. We were wondering, how are they going to manage to hide Janeway and not have everybody notice that she's missing? And so basically what Essentia does is hides her in the closet in her quarters. So got her there somehow and unconscious.
And because closets in Star Trek don't have locks, they can't even lock her in the closet.
Right. And, they basically put a do not disturb sign. The Admiral doesn't want to be disturbed. We're in the middle of this hunt for the protostar, and she wants to go take a nap. Like, that just doesn't seem, but it works for a time anyway, until Dal starts puppeting. And so then we have this other, so if we want to talk a little bit of a Trek science, quote unquote, this whole thing about merging the warp bubbles to kind of lock the ships together. I don't think we've ever heard of that before, right? That's not I don't think that's ever been a plot piece.
Oh yeah, we did it in all the way back in Enterprise. They had the 2 sister ships, the NX-01 and NX-02.
I don't remember that.
Upside down. Yeah, it's
I totally forgot that. Before. Okay. So I suppose it's really dangerous, and that's why they don't do that instead of try tractor beams and stuff.
It also won't fundamentally change the abilities of the ship. I mean, it may keep you tethered together as long as you're moving at the same speed, but they point out if they activate their protostar drive, we're going to be ripped apart.
Right. But I guess, I'm just thinking, like, they can still fire phasers at him and knock him out of warp eventually and that sort of thing. So although when you're tailgating basically at warp speed, it's going to be hard to get out of the way if they fall out of warp. That's all I can think.
This is basically the Star Trek version of a fighter jet locking onto a refueler in air is what they're doing.
Right. Or drafting at Talladega at 200 miles an hour.
Exactly.
So it's Zero who comes up with this idea to do the Mindwalk, the telepathic connection, and
actually it's proposed to him, but he goes with it.
Oh, okay. someone says, Zero, you're telepathic. Can't you send a message? Which is another thing that we thought about last week. And so that's really cool. But Zero says, I can only do that with the hive mind. We're hive mind creatures. And then says, Dal, you have telepathic DNA. Specifically, Organian DNA is the
apparently from before the Organians became purely energy beings, because that's otherwise it's jaw dropping. Wait, how? What? Organian, really? For people who may not remember, the Organians are a people that appear to be primitive, and they feature in an original series episode called I'm blanking on it. I had it just a second ago. Anyway, they feature in this original series episode where the Enterprise goes to the planet Organia, which is Errand of Mercy, which is kind of strategically located for both the Klingons and the Federation. And the Organians seem to be a primitive people with goats that have spray paint on them. And they seem totally unconcerned about the fact the Klingons are going to invade and dominate their planet. And they just don't care about this at all. And Kirk and Spock are trying to get them to care and side with the Federation, but they don't. And eventually it's revealed that the Organians are not the simple peasants they appear to be. They are super beings that have evolved into pure energy and are just taking these human forms for convenience. And so they are no threat to either the Klingons and the Federation are both no threat to the Organians, which is why they don't care. And they even are going to impose peace on the Federation and the Klingons.
Yeah, a very nice Cold War story analogy.
They also show up in an episode of Enterprise, where they're body swapping among members of the Enterprise crew as observers. And they comment that, these humans show some promise. Maybe in 10,000 years, we'll be ready to make contact.
Speaking of the body swapping, going back to that, the ones that I always find the most fun are the ones where you're seasons in, you've got the characters of the cast swapping with each other. So you've got DeForest Kelly pretending to be Shatner and vice versa. I always love those ones. Those are fun.
Yeah, and they're nice when they're played for comedy, because body swapping is pretty silly to begin with, and so it lends itself to comedy. There's that episode of Stargate SG-1, with Marcello, where they find this box that will switch you and whoever else is holding the other end of the box. And that one is hilarious.
Because there are several different swaps in that one. They get to play several different.
Literally have to play round robin with the
box.
Who's at one point Richard Dean Anderson's doing Christopher Judge, and that was a good one. That was a good one.
And at one point, in O'Neill's body, Teal'c says, "I've got to shave my head." And when they get back in their right bodies, Richard Dean Anderson looks at Christopher Judge and just says, "Shave my head?"
Yeah. Don't you dare. That's good. That's good. Oh, man. So finally we have Janeway in Dal's body has it explained to her what's going on. So the frustration that I was feeling of so long going with, the Starfleet people not knowing, right? This, finally relief. They've explained to someone who can fix things. But also, that's undone a little bit at the end. Sorry, that's what I was going to finish. Yeah.
Yeah. It hasn't really been that long, if in terms of episode count.
I know it feels that way.
They made it, but we've been watching this spaced out a week from each other, so it feels like a couple of months to us that this sub-thread has been going on. But really, it's only just a few episodes.
Right. It's the 8 episodes of this part of the first season, or 7 episodes. And that's the interesting thing is we only get 2 left. So this is the 7th of 9 for this, and the 17th of is it 9 or 10?
10 episodes in this half.
10 episode. We have 2. We do have the final 2-parter left.
Right.
This is the penultimate episode.
Okay. So there's 18. This is 8. this is the 8th of this part of the season, but it's the 17th of the full season, I guess. It's because they Lost and Found was a double length, so it gets a double episode number. So, but it was a double length. It's confusing the way they've broken things up and trying to parse it like that. But we're over a year that we've been watching this first season. That first episode aired at Halloween of 2021, and we're not going to finish this until nearly the last day of 2022. So it's kind of been long and spread out, which is kind of a weird first season, but it's a long first season, 20 episodes or 19.
It's effectively 2 seasons. I mean, they're just it's 1 in production order, but it's 2 the way they've split it up. But it seems clear to me we're not going to wrap up the whole Chakotay thing in the next 2-parter. That's going to wrap up the immediate threat from the construct. But I'm suspecting the Chakotay plot will be our main driver for next season, or at least our hook into next season. I think there's a strong possibility that the recovering Chakotay is going to be, after they've fixed the construct, is going to be a final last thing, and we've gone back in time and gone forward in time and got Chakotay back. I think there's a strong possibility of that, so that they can clear the decks for whatever they want to do next season. It's possible they also could have us in the process of dealing with the construct. They could have them thrown in time, or escape through time. And so they might not resolve the construct plot, but put it on pause while they time travel to go get Chakotay.
I kind of hope they don't do the thrown through time thing, just because that's Discovery season 3 and 4 or 4, whatever it was.
And it's the original Star Trek Voyager in time instead of space.
Yeah, I kind of, one thing we've been talking about is speculating what's coming next is maybe the kids all end up at Starfleet Academy. But we get Dal kind of gets the bad news. Oh, Dal can't go to Starfleet.
Blah, blah, blah. That's not true. Dal, number 1, has parents, and number 2, Dal will get into Starfleet Academy because they can and have made exceptions for augments. So it's just another exception. For Julian Brashear, they found a way for him to serve in Starfleet because his augmentation was not his fault. And he continued to serve in Starfleet during the Dominion War and for who knows how long afterwards. Also, in Strange New Worlds, they've established that number 1 is an augment, and she's obviously in season 2 after that has come to the Federation's attention. So there's going to be some way for her to serve in Starfleet.
However, in both cases, they did not know that they were augments until after they were already serving. And the last scene of Strange New Worlds is her being arrested. So, I mean, they're gonna do some way to work that around. But still, this is different than actually going into the academy knowing that he is an augment.
I think that that number 1. I mean, unless you're remembering something I've forgotten, I think number 1 knew that she was an augment when she went into...
But Starfleet didn't.
Starfleet didn't.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Yeah.
There.
But it's a kid's show. They're going to weasel it.
Yeah, they'll write around it. It's weird that if Janeway knew both of these cases prior, that couldn't say... But we can make an exception, or that's possible as an exception. It was very definitive. I know it's writing kid show and up the drama.
Kid show drama writing, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm glad it's finally, Janeway's on the case, but, she gets back in her body, but we end it where she's in the brig where I don't think it's just Essentia putting her in there to get her out of the way. I think Commander Tysus is like, there's something wrong with Janeway. And Dr. Newham is like, yeah, she's kind of lost a little bit, so let's put her in there for her safety and ours.
Except if something's wrong with her, she should be confined in sickbay. And
already didn't work once because she was let out by the diviner. So
yeah, she got out of sickbay. Yeah,
right. And speaking of that, I think that the diviner may be in the process of a face turn. He and that may, in fact, and it's Gwyn that's the motivating thing for his face turn. It is that may be why the order forbade them to have progeny, because it could distract them from the mission and cause them to have divided loyalties and so forth. And so I'm suspecting that Gwyn is going to redeem her father, and so we're going to have Leia Skywalker redeeming Darth Vader all over again.
Right. Yeah, that's I think that's a possibility. It was interesting to see. Like, it was sort of a bit out of character for the diviner to let Janeway go out of a sense of, you save me and I'll save you. The old diviner, before his mind wipe with the Medusan, would never have given into sentiment like that. So
he
it's
would
kind of
use
interesting.
the opportunity to take her out completely.
Yeah.
They have though, signaled that in previous episodes that he's had a change of mind about the evils of the Federation.
Yeah. Yes.
Although he still kind of talks about, making sure to complete his mission and all that. So
yeah, he's in the process of
he's in the process of that conversion, that change of heart. So
yeah. And then we have that final scene of, the dramatic scene of the protostar being surrounded by all these ships, which reminded me a little bit of the Lower Decks, where we had all the ships surrounding all the California class ships.
Or every new Star Trek series ever.
I was just thinking Picard did that too.
Yeah. There are these massive battles. It's like, okay, guys, this has become a trope.
Yep.
Yeah.
At least it's getting worn out.
At least in Picard, they didn't cut and paste the ship. If you remember that first season, Picard, it literally was the same ship for all of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But we also had it in the episode of Strange New Worlds where James Kirk showed up.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, the massive space battle with the bazillion ships has been done, guys. Thank you. Let's give that a rest for a while.
The Battle of the Binary Star was the first of the new Trek, right at the beginning. It's kind of lost its dramatic punch to do it that way. It's time to do something new. So anything left to say about this episode, Father Cory? Anything we missed?
A couple of things I kind of get a kick out of. They use the reach out your mind, and that phrase is kind of like nails on chalkboard to me. It's like, first of all, how do you do that? And secondly, that's when people talk about prayer. Oh, when you go to prayer, reach out your heart to God, which is an emotional thing. That's not, you're not like physically reaching your heart out. You're not ripping it out of your chest and holding it up or something like that. It's just one of those phrases that kind of gets on my nerves. And then I like that Jankum cut him off at the technobabble, where it's like, reconfigure the deflector to emit a tachyon pulse. Jacob Hogg doesn't know how to do that. Beep, 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 boop, boop, I like how they cut that off, It's just like, this is stupid. Knock it off.
Right. That was good. Jimmy, any final thoughts?
No, although I think there is a good chance that it's just Essentia that has Janeway in the brig, that the crew is not on board with that. But we'll find out.
Okay.
Oh, I know. I did have one. I wanted to comment on how nice the writing was, where Essentia arranges for the worst possible situation when the protostar reaches its destination, because it could just be, we're going to be there and we're going to face up against this experimental prototype ship. Gee, do you think we'll need any help? and with just that line, it's like, okay, let's bring in a bunch more ships so they all can get infected too.
Right. Yep.
And that was nice. That was nicely played. I don't think they needed the bazillion they found. But having some backup would be nice.
I wonder if this is the type of virus that is virulent, powerful, but not virulent, in the sense of all those ships together will fire on each other and destroy each other and die out. Like that'll be the end of the virus, I wonder. Unless, they come and investigate and find the construct and examine it and it infects more ships or whatever. Yeah. But
I will say with having all the ships, that's a far distance from like every other Star Trek plot of we are the only ship that's close enough to Earth to get there,
When the plot demands it, there's only one ship in the sector. When the plot demands it, there's Wolf 359. So it's whatever the plot demands. All right, so let's take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Paul S., Brian L., Robert W., Daniel P., and Ben H. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. We'd love to hear what you thought of this Prodigy episode, Mindwalk. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to trek@sqpn.com, or you could visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You can watch The Secrets of Star Trek in our happy faces in full video on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, where you should also make sure to subscribe. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the penultimate episode of this season, Supernova Part 1.
Unless we're discussing Supernovas Part 1 and 2, depending on the release schedule.
The release schedule is that Part 2 is going to be the following week.
Okay.
They have it on, so.
Okay.
It would be nice to wrap it up all at once. But until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, and live logs and proper.
And Father Cory Sticha, thank you as well.
Thank you, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, teamwork makes the dream work.